Hello, friends. Welcome to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on the stories we share and to be notified about new content. Sharing your thoughts and comments with us is highly valuable as it helps us improve our content even further. Thank you all. Happy listening. Hello, I'm Daria. I used to live on a touristy island in the Mediterranean region with my family. I can't give the exact name of the place because there are some concerns regarding tourism. We have a small, charming house by the seaside. As far back as I can remember, I grew up surrounded by the sea. I learned to swim and dive before I even started elementary school. Diving, especially, became a passion for me. In addition to my diving skills, I was also extremely interested in astrology and metaphysical subjects. I had a great curiosity about unseen entities as well. This was because we had lost many people from our family during those years. Both of my grandfathers, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my great-uncle passed away within a short period of time. I was very curious about what death meant and where they went. When I discussed these topics with our elders, I would receive answers like, "We have no news from the departed. We cannot know. But we believe that life continues in the other realm." However, these answers didn't satisfy me. I was constantly researching on the internet, curious about the afterlife and the other world. My research initially involved concepts like heaven and hell. Then I discovered metaphysics and began to explore the spirit realm. Finally, I focused on beings beyond that realm. I found a website on how to summon one of them. I delved into everything in detail, wanting to learn what they were like, how they appeared, and where they came from. One day, I told my close friend Perihan about my research. At first, she was scared, but then she became curious too. I showed her my notes and drawings, and she wanted to experience it with me. Why not? But let's do it at home, I said. She agreed. The next day, Perihan came over. My mom had gone to visit a distant relative. We went up to the attic room and prepared everything on the table. We were ready to chant the words and summon a presence. We closed our eyes and repeated the words, but nothing happened. To understand why, I looked it up on the internet again. I learned that it needed to be done at night. I began to think about how to organize it and the details to be arranged. However, Perihan got bored and wanted to go home. I didn't disturb anything on the table and waited for the night. After everyone went to bed, I took my place, lit the candles, arranged the papers, and closed my eyes, chanting the words. I noticed a slight breeze in the room, and the papers fluttered. As I slowly opened my eyes, I saw an energetic presence swirling around me. A black and blue smoke was swirling around me. I was so terrified that I felt paralyzed. As the blue-black smoke swirled rapidly around me, it suddenly stopped and stood right in front of me. It didn't have a human form, meaning it didn't have distinct features like hands, arms, mouth, nose, or ears. It only had eyes. Two glowing blue eyes in the midst of that black smoke were locked onto me and didn't move. Papers were flying around, and my hair was floating. This lasted for about 20-30 seconds. I couldn't move or even make a sound. I felt under its influence, thinking I couldn't bear it anymore. I closed my eyes and said the words for it to leave. The wind stopped, and the room calmed down, and when I opened my eyes, it was gone. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't stop trembling for a while. I blew out the candles and went to my bed, curled up, and pulled the blanket over me. I don't know when I fell asleep. In my dream, I was walking along the seaside on the other side of the island. I stumbled upon a place that looked like a shrine, but I didn't know or couldn't remember it from before. An old man emerged from the shrine's door, waving at me to come closer. Just as I was about to approach him, a dog emerged from the sea. Oh my God, this dog was blue-black in color, just like the entity I saw last night. With its blue eyes and black body, it was almost identical, and it was coming towards me. I panicked and retreated, but when the dog saw the old man, it ran back into the sea. I said, "I'll come back later," and turned away. The old man was watching me as I left. When I woke up in the morning, I couldn't make sense of the dream. I felt stiff all over, unable to get out of bed. My mother came and helped me get up. I told her I couldn't get up and that my whole body was stiff. She prepared a bath for me, soaked me in warm water, and I felt my body loosen up. Otherwise, I felt like I wouldn't be able to get up again. A few days passed, and one night while I was asleep, I felt a hand shaking me. When I opened my eyes, my room was filled with entities. They were all making different noises, shouting, and banging around all at once. I thought I was going crazy. One of them suddenly stood in front of me and said, "Daria, you wanted us. Here we are." All the questions in my mind vanished, and I couldn't utter a single word out of fear. Questions like, "Where are you from? What dimension are you from? Why were you created?" were running through my mind, but I was frozen. Soon after, one of them pressed down on me, and I couldn't move. My voice was hoarse, and I couldn't speak. A month after this incident, a group came to the island to research its historical past. The district governorate provided them with the necessary equipment, vehicles, tools, camping gear, and tents. They were going to set up camp near our house, and I was very happy about it. I bombarded the team that brought the supplies with questions. One of them said, "You know those statues at the bottom of the water? We're going to investigate them." I knew that area very well, and I had dived there a few times, but my mother had made me swear not to go too deep. However, according to them, that wasn't the case. I was sleeping in the morning when I was awakened by the sound of vehicles. I looked out the window and had to restrain myself from screaming with joy. The research team had arrived. I quickly got ready and went outside. There were about 20 people, 6 of whom were women. They sat at the picnic table by the water, placing some of the equipment on the table and some right beside it. I eagerly approached them and asked, "I'm Daria. Can I stand by you?" At first, they hesitated, but then one of the officials said, "Well, if she knows these areas well, she can be useful to us. Let's not reject her. Let's not upset this girl with sea eyes." The teacher came close to me. "Hello, my dear. My name is Hazen. I'm the head of this team." "And my name is Daria, teacher," I said. "Do you know why we came here, Daria?" he asked. "Yes, I heard." "You came here to research historical sites," I said. "Yes. Do you know these areas well? Can you show us around? Do you know every place?" he asked. "Of course. I was born and raised here. I know every corner inside out. I've dived into the place you'll be researching countless times." When I said this, the teacher was very pleased. "Okay, can you tell us about the history of the statues at the bottom of the water?" he asked. Of course, I said yes and began. Many years ago, this place used to be a town filled with palaces. Everything was on the surface, and everyone learned about these places by exploring and seeing them on the surface. But later, the town was submerged, I guess with earthquakes, and the island got separated from the mainland. High-rise buildings have been rebuilt and settled in again. These happened while I was away, but I know it happened like that from what I've heard from my elders. However, I don't have much information about which era this palace belongs to. They used to tell us not to touch those statues if we entered the water. I don't know why. Some said it was because they were valuable. Some said it was because there were jinn living in that area under the water. The teacher chuckled and said to me, Are there still such things in this day and age, my dear? Forget it. Surely they didn't want you to touch them because they were valuable. Upon the teacher's laughter, it didn't burst out of the water, as if someone was jumping into the water. 2 guards were left, and the rest returned to their beds. I also came home. They told me to be there at 7 in the morning. I accepted with joy. I would start a journey towards the unknown that could solve the mystery of those statues and perhaps other historical sites. When I got home, I gave the good news to my mother. My mother said, "My dear, what's your business living in such places?" "Oh, Mom, leave my curiosity about these things. Let me learn something, improve myself a bit," I said. I got excited and went to bed. Suddenly, stones were thrown at the window. I went to the front of the window, thinking it was my friend Perihan. I looked outside, but no one was there. Then another stone came. It was placed inside a piece of paper and thrown into my room. I rushed outside, but there was no one. I waited for a while, but to no avail. I went back inside. Then I thought Perihan had written something to me. After opening the paper, I couldn't believe my eyes. The handwriting on the paper said, "I need to stop this research, otherwise bad things will happen. It's something called a muselet." This note meant that fear replaced my joy. It was difficult to fall asleep that night. I went to the team early in the morning and asked for Hayes and Hoka. I asked if Hayes and Hoka had come. At that moment, he said, "Good morning" to me, and I immediately expressed that I wanted to talk. Hayes and Hoka said, "Of course, come on." After a while, I showed him the note left in my room at night, and Hayes and Hoka read the paper. Then he turned to me and said, "Daria, they left the same note in our room too. So, there are those against the research, but they can't deter us." "This place is more valuable than we thought," Hayes and Hoka said. Hayes and Hoka gathered the team and began to make a plan. 3 people put on their diving suits and dived into the designated spot. From the surface, we could see that they were connected to the building by a hook for safety purposes. They emerged about 20 minutes later and placed some pieces on the table. One figure caught my attention, a statue, holding a staff and with relief inscriptions around its neck. Hayes and Hoka also noticed it. We saw the team dive again. Suddenly, bubbles and turbidity began to form underwater. As the other 2 prepared to join the others, the rope of 2 divers surfaced. The ropes had snapped. The situation became very tense, and Hayes and Hoka told those preparing to dive, "Stop, I'll go down." The situation was serious. He turned to me and made me feel like he was thinking about what was written in that note. Luckily, one diver, with great difficulty, surfaced and was immediately pulled to the shore. Hazen, securing the rescue rope around his waist, dove into the water preparedly, and everyone was keeping an eye on him. I was very anxious. After a while, Hazen surfaced with the lifeless body of the other diver. He was crying, and when we saw the condition of the other diver, we understood why he was crying. The other diver's internal organs were exposed. His mouth and face were turned. One of his legs was severed, and his fingers were missing. He had clearly been tortured. They couldn't find the other one. They called the gendarmerie, and the gendarmerie came. They tried to understand the incident, took the body and considered it an industrial accident. They asked if they would continue the excavation. Hazen said they would continue. The gendarmerie's underwater teams were searching for the missing diver, but there was no news yet. It was night, and the surviving diver had returned to the island on his own. We all gathered around him, waiting for him to tell us what happened. He said they saw valuable items they dived for, and his friend found a passage and signaled for them to pass through it. We decided that all 3 of us wouldn't go together. 2 people would go at a time. After the two of them passed through, the diver began to wait. According to what he said, black shadows were coming out of the passage. He said there were thousands of them. At that moment, he said, they are here, and the trees began to sway. A terrible wind blew, the water rose, and high waves formed. He said those black entities were the same as the ones below. We started to see it too. They threw a floating corpse towards us from the water. They had turned it into such a state that only its bones remained. We recognized it from the flippers on its feet. The gendarmerie was notified, and it was said that the possible cause would be investigated, but Hazen Hodgka objected to this. He said he would set up a tent and stay here, and everyone listened to him. The surviving diver, Hazen Hodgka, and I were sitting at the table by the shore, looking at the water. Then I asked, Hodgka, what do you think? He said, I intend to go all the way with this. The surviving diver said, Hodgka, I won't dive into this water again. If you give me another task, I'll do it, but even if you don't want it, I'll go back. After seeing the scene below, I now think that this place is more important than life itself. It's a pity for my friends, and it will be a pity for my other friends. Please let's go back. Let's drop this, he said. As soon as he said it, he began to breathe deeply and panic deeply. He was having a seizure, trembling like an epilepsy patient. Foam was coming out of his mouth. Go away, go away. Please leave me. I didn't do anything. I didn't take anything of yours, he cried. Then he calmed down and came to himself. When he saw Hazen Hodgka in front of him, he attacked him, punching him. Suddenly, that man disappeared, and another creature came in his place. His eyes were bloodshot. Yellow pus was flowing from his mouth. From the depths of the water, there was a rumble as if there were hundreds of people there, and they were searching from there. As these murmurs increased, the diver became even more aggressive. I tried to save Hazen Hodgka, but I didn't have the strength. At one point, the diver turned his eyes to me and said, You stay out of it. I could never forget those demonic looks in his eyes. Fear had gripped me. Hazen Hodgka managed to hit the diver on the head with a stone. He barely managed to pick up from the ground and got up. The diver was laughing hysterically, as if his soul was burning. Then he took the tray we had eaten on and holding it, staring at the surface of the water, said in a strange rhythm, Do you see? Look, there's fun here. My friends have come. They dance on the water's surface. Can you see? Hazen Hodgka seemed lost on what to do. Finally, he called the gendarmerie officer who was on duty for us. The commander turned to Hazen Hodgka and said, Hodgka, look, you don't want to understand, but there are spiritual entities, supernatural things here. I think you should give up on this. But Hazen Hodgka was adamant. I don't know what stubbornness he was experiencing. No, I won't give up, he said. The delirious diver finally collapsed from exhaustion and fainted. In the morning, Hazen Hodgka put on the diver's suit, tied the safety rope around his waist, and dove in. We were waiting for him on the shore. A long time passed, but Hodgka didn't come up. There was no tension in the rope either. We started to get anxious. No one dared to go down. My childhood was spent swimming and diving in this water. Without hesitation, I dove in. They shouted after me, What are you doing? Are you crazy? Hold on to this. But it was too late. The statues weren't as close as they appeared. I didn't know how long I could hold my breath. Hazen Hodgka's safety rope was stuck on the rocks, but he wasn't there. I panicked at that moment. I didn't know if I could hold my breath any longer. As I tried to swim upward, I caught sight of a passage ahead. I surfaced and caught my breath. The shore was quite far away. Those who saw me were signaling me to come, but I had no intention of going back. I dove again. This must be the passage the diver mentioned. I grabbed onto it and looked inside and couldn't believe what I saw. This passage was a bright one after a dark sea, and there were waves there. I moved towards the sea, and as I ascended towards the light, everything changed suddenly. It was as if I had become lighter, and I didn't have to hold my breath. I let go of my breath. The water filling my lungs didn't bother me. Then a cave appeared before me, and I was amazed. This cave was lined with flawless craftsmanship, all of it made of gold. There was a throne above, and the king and queen were there. Human-like but different types of servants were wandering around, carrying fruit trays. I was captivated by the atmosphere of that place and passed through the passage. Of course, here is the translation of the text. They didn't seem surprised to see me. "Come here," said the king. "Me?" I asked. "Yes, you." I approached him. "You didn't do as you were told. We sent you a message. You've disrupted the 1,000-year-old order. Now you'll suffer the consequences," he said. My feet left the ground. Suddenly there was no gravity. I was floating. But there was a problem. I looked at my hands. I tried to clap them, but I couldn't. My hand was passing through the other. I turned around. I saw my collapsed body on the side. I looked at myself. I was now just a spirit. I wasn't ready to die. "Please, I haven't said goodbye to my family," I cried. But I no longer had a physical body. A mysterious figure entered. He was a wizard. Holding his wand, he muttered different things over me. "Where is Hayes and Hoka?" I asked. "Hayes and Hadia has also joined our family. Call him, let him come," he said. The teacher came. He was no different from me. "Now the fate of the entire island is in your hands. Those who have learned the mystery of this place, you will eliminate them one by one, and you will not allow anyone to disturb us anymore," he said. "Everyone up there?" I asked. "Yes," he said to me. He told me to surface and deceive them, to lure them into the water. The rest would be our secret, he said. There was no other option now. Since I was a spirit, I comfortably left the passage and came to the surface of the water. There was really no difference in appearance. "Hey, Hayes and Hadia found the palace. He invited all of you there," I shouted. They all jumped for joy. I was very sad, but there was no other way. Some put on diving suits, some their swimsuits, and some would wait on the shore. Smiling, joking, hugging. I couldn't bear such a scene. I squeezed, but I couldn't stand it. "Stop," I shouted. Everyone turned to me. "There is a passage below. That passage leads to the palace. But if you go through that passage, you won't be able to turn back," I said. One of them approached me and said, "How did you turn back?" "Actually, I didn't turn back," I said and looked into his eyes. The man saw the light shining in my eyes. "I think he's telling the truth," he said. At that moment, 2 guardian spirits appeared on the surface of the sea. They were tailing me. I explained to them that they shouldn't trust me. Of course, I saw them, but the others couldn't. I pleaded with them, "Leave this place before nightfall. Nobody should stay, or they'll occupy the whole island. They won't spare any of us," I said. While some found it absurd, a man who believed me asked, "What would have happened if we had gone down?" "They would have enslaved you," I said. The man nodded. "So, Hayes and Hadia?" I asked. "They'll probably destroy him after my betrayal," the man said. "Understood. Then leadership is mine," he said, turned around, and called everyone to gather. Some accepted and packed their bags, while others questioned why they should leave when the palace had been discovered. As words like, "Where is Hayes and Hadia?" "This little girl said she found him," kept coming. The man said, "I'm leaving." "I told you to leave." But if you're not going, it's up to you, he said. The man gathered himself and jumped onto the boat, along with 5 more people, and they left the island. 8 people were left behind. They chose a leader among themselves, I guess based on seniority. I don't know. They all kept saying, "Hadja, Hadja," to each other. I stood in front of those who wanted to jump into the water. Don't do it, I'm telling you plainly. You'll leave, but you won't come back, I said. Where is Hazen Hadja? He found the palace, you said, one female teacher asked. Yes, he did, but he's no longer alive, I said. How are you alive then? Why did you come and say Hazen Hadja found the palace and is calling you? She asked. When she asked, they captured me, said they wouldn't call you. Otherwise, they said no one on the island would survive. I'm not a bad person, but I'm very sorry for what I did. What I did will cost Hazen Hokas and my family's lives, maybe, but I can't knowingly endanger your lives, I said. The female teacher patted my head. Okay, dear, I understand you, she said. But they didn't wise up. Some dove into the water, but as soon as they dove, they disappeared. Those who remained scared away, they started waiting for them. But the ropes they tied for safety kept coming back empty. It was evening now. Hope was running out. The female teacher and 2 male teachers were left. Sitting by the tables, they were still waiting for their friends to surface. Even the gendarmerie was amazed by what was happening. The commander said, "Their oxygen must have run out by now. Don't wait in vain." I'm calling the underwater search team, and he went to his car. Everyone there was sitting on the benches, looking hopelessly at the sea. I wanted to approach them and say something, but I gave up. Night had fallen. They were still waiting. I went home. My mother scolded me, asking, "Where have you been?" I went to bed and fell asleep. In my dream, I was once again on the other side of the island, walking towards the shrine. I've arrived, I said, but only to that old man. Just then, I woke up to screams. The island was trembling, and I rushed to where the teachers were. No one was around. Only the items on the table and the tents remained. I looked at the water, and foam was rising to the surface. I had warned them to go, but they didn't listen, so I turned back to the island. Successively, I realized that this curse would also befall us, and I needed to do something about it. The shrine on the other side of the island and that old man came to mind, and I ran like crazy to the other side of the island. I searched for that old man and his shrine. Oh, my foolish mind, why didn't I come during the day before? If I had come during the day, I would have found it easily, I said. As I ran along the shore, I saw someone coming from the other side in white. It was that old man, and as soon as I saw him, I also saw his shrine. Old man, so you've finally come, he said. I've come, Uncle, I said. Come on, let's see what we can do to help you now, he said, took my hand, and we started walking along the shore. Then we walked towards the sea, but his feet weren't getting wet. I couldn't understand how we had suddenly arrived at that camp area by walking along the shore. The old man struck his staff on the ground and began chanting something with his hands open. The sea began to swell, foam rising. Then, when the old man struck his staff hard again, the sea overflowed, waves surged, and started crashing onto the shore. It was almost going to engulf us, but something started to appear on the surface of the sea, and I noticed that our uncle was nowhere to be seen. What was happening in the sea? There were dozens of people swimming towards the shore. Yes, they were the research team that had come here, and finally, Hazen Hadja also emerged onto the shore, and they sat down. I caught my breath. That old man did it all, I said, but the old man had already disappeared. The research team who had gathered overnight, hastily boarded their boats and left the island in the morning. Hazen Hadja was the last one remaining, and we bid farewell to him. "Professor, what happened? How did you escape?" I asked. "That old man you mentioned. When he struck his staff on the ground, the king below began to tremble, and he quickly vanished. The sorcerer released us. Go, or else he'll destroy this place," he said. We also swam up to the surface after passing through the passage. Then I was on the shore. "Congratulations, teacher. We've weathered a great storm," I said. "Congratulations, my dear," he said. He gave me a kiss on the cheek and jumped onto the boat, waving goodbye as I saw them off. After bidding farewell, I rushed to the shrine on the other side. But there was neither a shrine nor any similar structure in sight. I searched everywhere, but it was nowhere to be found. I asked my parents, but they said they didn't know or see anything either. I guess he was an angel or a benevolent jinn who came to help us. That's the end of our story, friends. If you have stories you'd like us to share, you can reach us through the comments section. Thank you.